Morning, everyone. We'll give everybody just a few seconds to filter in here. All right, it is 10 o'clock on the dot. I have shared some information with you in the chat. I will try to share that later on if we have more people filter in. Let's get started. So as a reminder, the contents of the documents that we've graded here today were developed under a grant from the U.S. Department of Education. However, these contents do not necessarily represent the policies of the U.S. Department of Education, and you should not assume endorsement from the federal government. Please always remember that Family Matters Parent Training and Information Center is not a legal service agency and cannot provide legal advice or representation in any way. So nothing that I share with you today, even though I reference 504 plans, section 504 plans, IEPs, IDEA, none of that should be considered as legal advice. We're just sharing it with you for informational purposes. I also would like everyone to understand and remember that we do not offer CEUs for our trainings. We can provide you with a certificate of completion if you email the trainer after today's presentation. We can do that. So what is a Parent Training and Information Center? So PTIs are federally funded organizations that provide free support, training, and information to families of children with disabilities. These centers are authorized under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act to help parents understand and navigate the special education system. PTIs serve families of children from ages birth to 26 and offer assistance in a variety of formats, including workshops like the one we are doing today. Family Matters PTIC has the privilege to serve the state of Illinois as their Parent Training and Information Center. We do lots of things here. We do one-to-one support, community involvement, workshops or trainings like today, lots of stuff. So to find out more about our center and what we offer, you can visit our website. So also please note that throughout the presentation, we may reference parents, but we are referring to parents, guardians, primary caregivers of students. So every family looks different. So please note that. Again, my name is Abby Mars. I am a transition facilitator and educational support coach and a Charting the LifeCourse facilitator here at Family Matters Parent Training and Information Center. I have been with the company for 5 years, hold a bachelor's degree in human services with a career focuses on disability supports as students are aging out of high school. So at this time, this is a very short time today, so I don't want to go into too much, but could you please in the chat share with me your title, how you identify. Are you a parent, a professional, an educational surrogate parent? I see a few of my ESPs in the chat. So please at this time share in the chat who you are and what your role is. So thank you everybody for joining us today. I want to let you know that we will move through some of our information quickly. However, I have shared a copy of the slides in the chat if you need those to help you along on our journey. So today's session will be interactive. We will be sharing information. I'll be asking you to put stuff in the chat as you have time to do that. So yeah, I'm super excited. So really quick, how many of you have received an IEP progress report? And in that progress report, have you felt that you had more questions than answers? Yes, right? Yes, so exactly. You're not alone. Progress reports are supposed to tell us how our student is doing, but they can often feel confusing or incomplete. Today's training objectives will hopefully help you to understand these progress reports a little bit better. Here's what we're going to cover. So first, we're going to break down the components of IEP progress goals. Then we will learn how to interpret progress monitoring, what's helpful, and what should raise red flags. We'll explore how goals align with students' strengths and families' visions through the Charting the LifeCourse framework. And finally, I'll share strategies for advocacy and the kinds of questions you can ask during a meeting or to your child's provider when you're looking at your progress notes. Oh, I went backwards, sorry guys. So progress goals are specific measurable statements in the IEP that describe what a student is expected to achieve within the year. They come directly from the present levels of academic achievement or functional performance. So we have that wonderful term, what is it called? PLAF or PLAAFP. So think of it as the starting line, okay? And the goal is as the finish line approaches or the end of the year. So for example, if a student currently reads 30 words per minute, a goal might be by the end of the year, the student will read 60 words per minute with 90% accuracy in 3 out of 4 trials. Now, I'm lost already. That's a lot of information with percentages that make me nervous, with trials that trigger anxiety. Sometimes they're hard, but that's measurable and it shows growth in a baseline. So let's try this. Take 60 seconds and think of a goal you've seen in an IEP, maybe for your child or a student you support. Was it easy to measure or was it vague? Think about this. So now that we know what a progress goal is, let's talk about how we connect those goals to the bigger picture of life, because goals should never exist just in isolation. So, the Charting the LifeCourse framework is a set of tools designed to help individuals and families think about what they want their life to look like, not just in school, but across their entire lifespan. It covers areas like daily life, community living, safety, social relationships, and health. When we read IEP goals, we should be asking, how does this goal fit into my child's vision for their future? For example, a self regulation goal in school connects to workplace readiness later in life. Being able to take a break when stressed is just as important at a job as it is in a classroom. So think of one strength your child or your student has. You could envision placing it on the point of the star. Now ask yourself, what kind of IEP goal could build that strength to support long-term independence? This is where progress goals become powerful. They're not just about the next 9 weeks, they're about building a bridge to the future. So every goal that we have, I'm sorry, I cut off my head there. Every goal that we have should align with what your student wants for their future, even our students with higher support needs. Every goal in that IEP should be thinking about what happens next. That's why I'm a firm believer that transition starts the first day of preschool or kindergarten or whatever day that your child starts learning for the first time in school environment. Everything we do in these IEPs build towards the life that your student wants to have for themselves. So measurable goals are SMART. I'm sure everybody's heard that term before. This means they're specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time mapped. So for example, by 2025, Kira will independently write a 5-sentence paragraph with no more than 2 grammatical errors in 4 out of 5 opportunities. Like how that's worded better. I like it a lot. It's not too overwhelming. So Kira will improve. So compare that with Kira will improve her writing, which is pretty vague. So if our goal just says Kira will improve her writing, it's not very specific. Like define improve. How much will she improve? How will we measure this? To measure goals, we need progress monitoring methods. When we talk about SMART goals, we mean goals that are SMART. Each part of the acronym is essential, and skipping any of these areas can make an IEP goal ineffective. So for example, specific. Goals should be clearly defined with what skill or behavior the student is expected to achieve. Instead of saying the student will improve reading, a specific goal might say the student will decode grade level words and increase accuracy. Specific wording avoids vague language and helps everyone on the IEP team, including the family, know what the target goal is. Measurable. There needs to be a clear way to track progress. This is where criteria come in. For example, that 80% accuracy across 3 consecutive trials. Measurable goals lets teachers, related service providers, and parents know if progress is happening. Without this piece, goals can become subjective and open to interpretation. Achievable. Goals should stretch the student's abilities, but still be realistic given their current baseline. This means starting with baseline data and building goals that are challenging but attainable. If the goal is set too high, it sets the student up for failure. But if it's too low, the student isn't being challenged enough. I just explained this to a parent a few days ago. So their student is in first grade working on, their student is reading at a first grade reading level, but they're in fourth grade. And the parent had a very good question. How do we close that gap? How do we increase it so that my student catches up to his peers? Goals should also be relevant. Goals should connect to the student's real needs and future aspirations. For secondary transition students, this is especially important. Goals should link to their transition plan and post-secondary outcomes, like employment, community participation, or independent living. Relevance makes the goal meaningful and ensures it isn't just a compliance checkbox. So I really like to help my students understand why they have the goal and then put it in their terms to where they understand why they need to have the goal. So just telling Kira, for example, that she needs to improve her word decoding and read 30 words per minute, she doesn't know what that means or even why, maybe. So we might say to her, Kira, currently right now, your word decoding is low. We may want to improve that and help you to read faster. And this is how we're going to help you, because reading faster is going to help you in your job someday, or reading faster might help you text faster. We can bring it into language and things to our students that interest them. Time bound. Every SMART goal should include a clear time frame for achievement, usually by the next annual IEP review. For larger goals, short-term objectives or benchmarks can be added, and in Illinois, we require those. Having a timeline ensures accountability and helps the team check progress along the way. The bottom line is that a SMART goal makes the IEP a living, functional plan rather than just a compliance document. They give teachers a clear target, families a way to monitor progress, and most importantly, they give students a structured path towards meaningful outcomes. So we're going to talk a little bit about methods to monitor progress. So we have curriculum-based measurements and frequency in reporting to parents. So curriculum-based assessments might include a rubric, a teacher's data collection, standardized probes. The important things is schools must report progress as often as your student gets report cards. So that's why I thought it was important to do this presentation right now. We should be starting to get report cards for the first quarter of the school year. So you should be getting, along with your student's standard report card, a small report about the progress they're making towards their goal. So raise your hand if you've received a progress report that just said making progress. So let me know in the chat. Let me know if you've received one before that says making progress. Yes. Yes. So frustrating, right? So frustrating. Did it feel helpful to know that they were just making progress? Right? So let's see what this looks like in a real life example. So my student has ADHD and they're working on self-regulation. So the goal is the student will use a break card, approximately 4 to 5 observed opportunities across 3 consecutive weeks. Progress monitoring is the teacher has a tally chart and the student self-reports. So the student, we see that progress was tracked using those tally marks, and the student self-reports to the teacher. So what kind of data would you expect to see with this goal? A chart, percentages, logs. You're right. The grades are not a good definition of your child's progress. You need more of a direct progress. Okay, so we're seeing a lot. We don't see the data. So now we know that we're going to ask for that data, right? So especially when our students are self-reporting, if the student's self-reporting to the teacher and she's making a tally, how often do you know how well that is going? So she might show you in a graph. She might, show you by spelling it out in a paragraph that Kira's doing really well with self-regulation. I noticed she was doing it this, and this is how many tally marks. The important thing to remember, no matter how it is reported to you as a parent, if you need help understanding it, that's perfectly fine. You ask them to restate it for you. Progress reports should include the baseline, updates, and a comparison to the goal. So a weak example would be student is doing better in math. A stronger example would be increased accuracy 40 to 70% on math facts over 8 weeks. Now, excuse me, if you have trouble understanding that, it's perfectly okay to say, Mrs. Smith, help me understand this progress goal. I need to know if Johnny's making progress in math. So of the two examples, of the weaker example and the stronger example, which do you as a parent or an advocate do you think would give you a clearer picture on if Johnny is doing better? Yeah, the stronger goal for sure. Absolutely. All right, let's do a quick knowledge check. Which is not a measurable goal? Student will improve reading. Our student will read 100 per words per minute with 95% accuracy by May 2025. That's right. A is not a measurable goal. All right, let's show another real life example. So by June 2026, Kira will complete a job application with 80% accuracy and 3 out of 4 trials with a job coach support. So I like here that Kira's job coach is helping her to do this. We aren't super clear about what type of job application. As we all know, there's many different type of job applications out there, but she's completing a job application. So as a parent, I could ask that question in IEP meeting, what type of job application? Is she writing a whole story about herself on LinkedIn? Is this one for McDonald's where she fills it out online? Or, these are questions you can ask during the meeting. Uh, so the data for this does include work samples and checklists and notes, so you can see how Kira is doing with this. It aligns with our Charting the LifeCourse domains because Kira's working on employment as one of her post-secondary goals. So as a parent, I would love to see this goal on my students' IEP. So her goal is working towards a job. It's a post-secondary outcome she's working towards. This might be something the first step to getting a job. This might not be a year-long goal either. It might be more short-term, like in the first quarter, she's going to do this. It says June, so obviously it's October. It's going to be a little long-term, but it doesn't have to be the whole year goal. Maybe this is the first step in the process. So how do we use this data to advocate? Well, as a parent, you can ask what data source was used, how often it was collected, and can you show me a graph or a sample? And bring that Charting the LifeCourse one-pager to align the process with your family vision. We've talked a lot about one-pagers in the past. If you want to know more about one-pagers, we have information on our website under the Charting the LifeCourse tab, and you can learn more about one-pagers. But you can role play with your student as well to say, I'm going to ask more about this goal and your progress. You can send an email to the school. You can send a phone call that you would follow up with an email and ask, what kind of data did you use? Could you provide me a graph or some type of visual tracking to see that my student is improving here? Can you tell me how he's improving? Is he using this type of curriculum to improve his reading? And can you show me examples like on IXL Math or MobiMax or whatever system they're using? Can you show me some hardcore, I'm a visual person, I want to see this? So some common challenges include lack of actual data. I think we've pretty well said that a lot in the comments today. Overall, the goals are too broad. Reports not matching to the written goal. I've even sometimes seen copy and pasted and my students' names wrong on the progress report because they've copied and pasted. So that's why it's important to look at those progress or goals. So, when my kids' report cards come home, we look at them, we give them praise and encouragement. And if they have one that they have an area where they're really struggling, we talk about it. We don't look at it as a failure. I just ask, hey, buddy, I see that, history's going a little rough. How are you feeling about history? We ask these questions and then I compare that with the progress goal. So for my youngest, he has dysgraphia and he has a goal in his IEP to structure sentences better, build paragraphs. And I'm going to look at the progress data from that. And how is he doing on working on that goal? I'm going to look at his executive functioning goals. How's he doing on that? Then I'm going to apply it to the grade he's getting in history. Because when I look at his grades in history, I see that he's missing several assignments, didn't follow the instructions, all these things. And then I know maybe our goal should reflect that he's not making a lot of progress if he's struggling this much in history. So I look and I compare. So that's a great way to use that progress monitoring tool as a way to understand your child's current report card. If we keep up on those things on understanding that progress monitoring, we make sure that we're not getting a big surprise at the annual IEP when you walk in. And we're also making sure that our students reaching their goals. So there's a great question in the box. How often should progress reports be given? So it's very clear in IDEA. It says as often as other students receive them. So if your school does the semester program or trimester program or breaks it down by quarter, it should be how often other students are receiving their regular report cards or assessments. You should be getting a progress note about to their goals. If you are not, we have a template. I don't think it's in the folder I shared for this one. We have a template on how you can write a very nice email to your school saying, hey, I haven't received progress for blah, blah, blah. So you can definitely do that. You can definitely ask for those progress if you're not getting them. Sometimes, like I wasn't getting them for a minute and found them at the end of my kids' locker, like their stuff down there, or sometimes they just forget to send them. So, and they have to collect the data all year long. So that's why you get copies of that data for progress notes. So, and this is a good question to ask at your student's IEP when you're talking about who will measure the progress of my students' goals. I, as a parent and an advocate, if my student has a brand new goal, especially to address something that's huge, like maybe they're having some behavioral concerns or he's failing XYZ, I kind of want to know about progress about that goal a little more frequently than every 6 to 9 weeks for a progress report. So I will ask, can we check in once a week to see how he's doing with this? Can we check in once a month to see if the accommodations are supporting enough? How will other teachers know what accommodations my student has, and how will they know that we're working on this goal? So that's where that one pager tool really comes in handy. And I think we're going to do a presentation on the one pager again next month as part of our self-advocacy series to understand the importance of that one pager. But it's good questions to ask because we all know, especially for our kiddos that are older, not every teacher sets in on the IEP meeting, right? But every teacher's job that works with your student to work on their IEP goals. So do the other teachers understand he's working on this goal and needs these accommodations, and do they know how to report what progress they see back to the special education or the goal progress reporter? So building these relationships, we definitely want to do collaboration. It works better than confrontation. I think we all know that. Ask clarifying questions like, can you show me what this looks like in the classroom? So if the speech teacher has a goal to do this, it's okay to then turn to the general education teacher and say, can you tell me what this looks like in the classroom? Because again, it's everybody's job to work on the IEP goal, just not the speech teacher. So again, sharing that Charting the LifeCourse one pager to remind the team of the bigger vision. So I would really love to hear in the chat some ways you as parents have built that collaboration with your school team. So for example, I love the one pager I use for my students, though, either on my ESP caseload or my families I work with or my students. I love that Charting LifeCourse one pager because it brings it more student centered and we know to focus on my student. Before I did the one pager, I would put a picture of my student in the middle of the table. I envision the table as a round table that we all have an equal role at the table. I'm not better than them. They're not better than me. They may have a degree in sociology, but I have a degree in Ethan or I have a degree in Kira. And so we are a community, we work together, and it's a great way to build that collaboration with each other. So I'm going to read just a few examples in the chat. Can you send us the one pager? I love the one pager. You know I'm going to send it out. I love it. Any of my ESPs in the or anybody else heard of the one pager before? I rave about the one pager. Yeah, thank you, Angel. I knew you would. All right. So other ways to build collaboration is constant communication. I like when my students start their school year to find out who their gen ed teacher is, who the PE teacher, everybody. I like to do group emails to keep in communication. Most schools have public websites where you can find that email information. So if your student has an IEP, that's another good question to ask in the meeting. Can I have each teacher's email address so we can keep in communication? A lot of the time, school apps like Teacher Ease and Class Dojo have ways to do that, to send group messages. Because I like to stay in contact. I like to share the good and the bad. I love to send a message to the PE teacher and say, Ethan's so excited about playing lacrosse this week. And then the PE teacher is going to be more comfortable to reach out and say, I know he's super excited, but he's struggling to remember to rank on his PE clothes at the end of the day. And then I can reiterate, I get that. He has executive functioning delays, and we're working on this goal with organization with this other class. I wonder if there's some way we can carry some of that over to PE. So it's a working relationship. You're not accusing the PE teacher of not doing his job. He's not accusing you of being a bad parent. It's a way to build and build on that relationship. All right, let's pull all this together. So the cycle is simple. Goals equal data, data equals family vision, and that equals advocacy. Charting the LifeCourse is the thread that ties these pieces together. So I really want you to think about one action step you're going to take before your next IEP meeting, whether it's to message your school and see about progress notes, if it's to talk to the history teacher and the special education teacher about that universal goal we're working on. Think about some steps you're going to take before your next IEP meeting. I'm going to attempt, as I bring up the resource page, to launch poll. I'm not the best at polls. There we go. So I'd like to know, after today's presentation, after all the times you've worked with Family Matters, how confident are you in participating in your student's IEP? Somewhat, for the most part. That's great. It's wonderful. Absolutely. This is great, guys. All right, and one more poll. It's about PTICs. Have you heard about parent training and information centers before? Are you new to your relationship with PTICs? Ooh, about mixed. That's great. That's wonderful. That's awesome. Okay, so before we move on too much today and I take some questions, I just want to remind you about our survey. So we'd like to ask you to take a few minutes to complete our survey by scanning the QR code on this slide. You will also get a prompt to do so as you exit the presentation. Your feedback is incredibly important to us at FMPTIC. So every time we deliver training, we want to make sure it truly meets the needs of the families, educators, professionals, and self-advocates we serve. By filling out the survey, you will help us understand what's most helpful, where we can improve, and what topics you'd like us to cover in the future. Surveys also help us keep up our funding as a parent training and information center. The data we collect shows our federal and state partners that families and schools are using and benefiting from our trainings. In other words, your voice in this survey not only improves our work, but it also ensures that we can continue offering free resources and workshops across Illinois. The survey is short, usually only a few minutes, and it should not take too much time out of your day. So please, if you haven't already done so, take out your phone, scan the QR code, and share your thoughts. Your input really does matter. So at this time, we're going to take a few questions. I am going to stop the recording. So if you're watching the recording of this presentation, thank you for joining us today. I encourage you to also follow and do the survey. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to the staff here at Family Matters Parent Training and Information Center.